fantastic to be in Sydney. We are all Bitcoin. Thank you. I'm off back to Europe. Bye. No, just kidding. I'm so glad to be here. As you know, it's a long, long flight, but I've been having an absolute great time here, regardless of any jet lag. I've been enjoying my stay. I took a long, long walk yesterday from Randwick to the Opera House, so a 2-hour walk. I woke up at like 4:30 and started my walk at 5:30, and had to avoid some rain on the way. I stood under a rock with some suspicious-looking spider webs on the wall in Queen's Park, and I came to a spot where I saw some sort of town hall with a rainbow flag painted, and I saw a political rainbow there and a real rainbow up there. And I came to think about my computer, because my computer identifies as non-binary. It isn't non-binary, but it identifies as non-binary. It presents itself as non-binary to me, because it shows me pictures and videos and audio and games and all sorts of stuff. But that's not what it is. What it is just ones and zeros. So it's actually binary. No comment about the political landscape there. So what does that mean? Well, it means it's just small switches that go on or off, yin or yang, 1 or 0. And we call that data. And whenever data identifies as non-binary, we call it information. So information is just non-binary data, basically. And what is a computer? What does it do? It's a tool that we use. And it helps us basically do one thing, and that is to calculate stuff. So it's little more than a very fancy abacus. It helps our brains with mathematics. That's what a computer does. And by doing that simple thing, it can turn into this wonderful non-binary machine that can show us movies and cat videos on the internet and so on. And that is, it has the same purpose as all other tools and technologies, and that is to save someone time somewhere. Every tool we humans ever invented were there for the same purpose, to save us time when we do some work. When we do work, we save time by using the correct tool. And for calculations, the computer is the correct tool. So a computer is really nothing but an extension of our brains. It does things that we can do with our brains, but the computer can do it way faster than we can. Now, where am I going with all of this? This means that everything in Bitcoin is just that. It's an extension of our brains. When I was a kid, I had a Commodore 64. That was my first computer. Did anyone have a Commodore 64? Oh, there are almost boomers in the audience. And that was a fantastic machine. And one of my first insights about computers came from that machine, when I made a little program that said 10 print hello and 20 go to 10. Because what happened was that it printed hello all over the screen over and over again. And I thought it was simply fantastic, because that meant anything on a computer could be copied an infinite amount of times. It wouldn't stop. The program wouldn't stop until I pressed whatever was the equivalent of the escape button on a Commodore 64. And I had a similar feeling when I first discovered Bitcoin, because people claimed that Bitcoin was a thing on computers that couldn't be copied. And to me, that was as weird as like a time machine, because what is that? How can that work? So that's why I took a deep dive into it and understood that this thing is actually doing what it says it does. It's something on the internet that can't be copied. But why can't it be copied? How does that, if it's computers, why can't it be copied? It just makes no sense. And what you figure out after a while when you've been in Bitcoin and like tried to understand it for a while is that it's not, the computer is a means to an end, but this thing is just an agreement between people on a fixed set of rules. And that is all it is. Because when you run a Bitcoin node, the node is not the node in the network. You are the node in the network. The guy who, or girl, or anything in between, who chooses to run the node, you're the one making the decision. And it's your decision what kind of software you will run. And therefore, the network comes to the consensus and Bitcoin functions as it does. And if we all agree on the same set of rules, the network functions better. And not only that, but we have something personal to gain from that. So the system is constructed in a way where all incentives align so that it's more profitable to agree with the system than to try to cheat the system. You all know this, right? So the analogy I often use is like it's like the game of chess. If you know the rules to chess, you can play with every other chess player in the world, and no one can stop you from doing that. And if some big chess conglomerate somewhere, like chess.com or something, decides to change the rules, they cannot do so because people will still play by the rules they want to play by. So there's a consensus for a specific set of rules. And that's how Bitcoin functions. We don't have to care what anyone says is the rules. So when someone who is not Satoshi Nakamoto, for instance, says that the blocks should be shit big, we can choose to ignore that guy and say, like, you're not Satoshi Nakamoto, we choose whatever block size we want, and so on and so forth. But the point is that we as individual actors are the ones who decide what Bitcoin is. We can choose to play chess cash on a ginormous board with very few pieces. We can play chess Ethereum, where the rules change with every move. And we can play all sorts of other stupid game and win stupid prizes. But we don't. We play by the rules that everyone else plays by, because we know by doing so, we enable something within us, which is very, very beautiful, and that is Bitcoin. Yes. So that's my shortest definition of Bitcoin when people ask me what is Bitcoin, it's an agreement on a fixed set of rules. Now, what is owning a Bitcoin? Well, there's a difference between ownership and possession, because ownership is contractual. So I own this hat, for instance, an ugly blue hat that I bought for €6 at a China shop in Spain. And I possess the hat because it's on my head. But I can do this. And now you possess the hat. But wait a minute. Don't ruin it. So I still own the hat because I bought it. So contractually, like, we have a silent contract that's my hat and you're in possession of it right now. And I can say to you, can I please have my hat back? And then you have a choice. You can say, yes, sir, of course, Your Highness, and give it back. Or you can say, no, you can't, fuck you. You're on my turf now, Australia. We keep hats here. Yeah. So there's a difference between ownership and possession. So when someone says they own a Bitcoin, they can either, oh, can I have my hat back, please? So much for possession. So when someone says they own a Bitcoin, you can own a Bitcoin contractually, which means you can have it on an exchange, or you can, use a custodial service or whatever. And then you own the Bitcoin, but someone else possesses it. So if shit hits the fan, and this third party that you're trusting that you shouldn't be trusting gets a bad idea, then you don't get to keep that Bitcoin. They can run away with it because they possess it. But if we think even deeper about this, are you really possessing a Bitcoin? Like, is it your possession? We already figured out that it's just information and an agreement on a fixed set of rules. So it's not really something you can possess. So what does it mean to own a Bitcoin or to possess a Bitcoin? It means keeping a secret. And that's it. So if you have 12 magic words, so if you have a seed phrase, and you memorize that seed phrase, and you destroy the seed phrase, any paper or anything else the seed phrase is on, and you memorize it, then you have that seed phrase in your head. And that's the only place that that seed phrase exists. That means that you are those Bitcoins. So you are that Bitcoin if you have them in your head. There's no distinction between your brain and your Bitcoin. Now think about that a bit deeper. This is true not only for when you memorize your 12 words and destroy them. If you know the location of a seed phrase, and you're the only one that knows that that is a seed phrase at all, to someone else it might just be 12 random words in a book somewhere, then you are your Bitcoins too. In fact, every Bitcoin in possession by any human being on Earth is just a secret kept by someone. So they all Bitcoins live within our heads. And this is funny because like, they say El Salvador owns Bitcoin. Well, El Salvador doesn't have a brain. El Salvador has like a couple of million brains. And it's not true that those Bitcoins live inside all of those millions of brains. What I think I know, I'm not entirely updated on this, but I suspect that El Salvador has a custodial solution for Bitcoin, which means that some guy owns the Bitcoin and not El Salvador. And like, not your keys, not your coins, that's correct. But dissect that phrase, not your keys, not your coins. Like that's, what that means is not your brain, not your coins. Which means that if you aren't your Bitcoin, you don't have any Bitcoin. You have to be your Bitcoin to have them. So, and this is so weird. Like, what is this thing? So all it does is that it unlocks something. Since we are the Bitcoins, and they give us superpowers because we can unlock them and send them to some other brain, so that that brain can reap the fruits of the value of those Bitcoins. That means we have this superpower in which we can voluntarily and consensually interact with our fellow human beings, regardless of who they are and where they are on Earth, or which one of the 21 genders they have. We can do what we want with them. Which means that, yeah, a couple of things. You've probably heard the phrase time preference if you've been in Bitcoin for a while. So since Bitcoins are absolutely finite, and because of number go up technology, supply and demand goes up, supply is either steady or goes down in Bitcoin over time. And the more people that figure that out, the more valuable they become, and therefore number go up. So they're deflationary, which means that it's better for you to hold on to them than to spend them. And if we think about that for a while, that means like 1 divided by clown world. That's how I interpret that. And what I mean by that is that it's the opposite of consumerism. So instead of consumerism, we get to this insight that which we can do without we own, which is something my grandfather used to say. And it's like the flip side of your things end up owning you. So Bitcoiners, all the Bitcoiners I've met that have been in Bitcoin for a long time, they aren't very materialistic. They want to be free, and they want to own a toothbrush, and maybe a tungsten cube, and nothing more. And I think that's very beautiful, because we can have this, everything in abundance, because the prices of everything we could ever desire will drop over time, denominated in Bitcoin. And at the same time, we will crave less. And that's just a wild, wild thought. And more than that, we realize that if we help other Bitcoiners succeed, then we help Bitcoin succeed. So if you help a Bitcoin company succeed by buying their products, or if you just help someone out with anything within this network of people, you help Bitcoin. That at some point that leads to number go up. And the same thing, if Bitcoin succeeds, then we all succeed. So we're all incentivized to help one another and love one another. And at the same time, not to spend our Bitcoin. So we will spend everything else we've got before we spend our Bitcoin, including our reputational capital. And this is the thing I always talk about. Like, this is the mathematical equivalent of the Beatles song, All You Need Is Love. Like, they were right, they just hadn't found the equation for it yet. And the equation for it is obviously Satoshi's equation, and the answer to that equation is obviously everything divided by 21 million. And this is where we're headed. So, the real funny thing about that then, I keep saying that, don't I? But this is what Bitcoin does to me. It keeps blowing my mind over and over again, is that all it did was unlock something that we had in us all along. So we are Bitcoin, and we had this ability to not fight one another and do things voluntarily instead of with coercion and violence. It was all in us all along. All Satoshi did was give us the key, the private key to our hearts, so we could wear them on our sleeves in public. And yeah, I find that beautiful. So remember that when you interact with other Bitcoiners, they are your friends. If they're real Bitcoiners, they are your friends. All right. Does anyone have any questions for me? Are we doing questions? Anyone? Sorry? That hat? Yeah. I sadly enough, I had to give up some sats for this hat. Yes. I have to go and write another book or something in order to afford the hats. My favorite Bitcoin books? Oh, other than my own. I was just about to answer that question with 3 titles. My favorite Bitcoin books are 1984 by George Orwell and The Emperor's New Clothes by Hans Christian Andersen.
What do you think an unbiased AI
An unbiased AI. I don't think an unbiased AI will think, because I think there's more to thinking than we think. Thank. I'd like to quote one of my other favorite authors there, Terry Pratchett, and say that real stupidity beats artificial intelligence every time. And Bitcoin is like our last chance at beating these fucking AIs, because it's real stupidity squared. It's all of our stupidity together. And that's the thing we have to fight these evil algorithms. Anyway, to make it a bit less ridiculous, like what an AI does at this point is just predict the next word in a sentence. That's what ChatGPT does. And like, sure, the things are extremely cool, but I think there's something to human creativity that just can't be replicated by a machine ever. And by the way, I'm an optimist. Very few. There are a lot of pessimistic Bitcoiners and cynicals that think that we're headed into this CBDC, constant boot to the face type future. But I don't think so. We have Bitcoin, we have social media, and we have even Nostr now, which is unstoppable social media without censorship, where we can zap each other's sats back and forth. And we have video conferencing by the push of a button on every single device, which means that anyone on Earth can get in touch with anyone else very easily. And I think, do you know about the thing called Kevin Bacon numbers? It's, long story short, like it's how far away from Kevin Bacon you are connection-wise. Like if you're Kevin Bacon, you have Kevin Bacon number 0. If you've been in a movie with Kevin Bacon, you have a Kevin Bacon number 1. If you've been in a movie with someone that's been in a movie with Kevin Bacon, you have a Kevin Bacon number 2. And if you do that, not only for movies, but for human connections in general, in today's world where we have social media, I would say that, like when they did the study like 15 years back on Internet Movie Database and Kevin Bacon, the longest connection they could find was 6 steps, which is pretty short. But I would say that that's probably closer to the number 2 today. So you're all in the same room as me and a bunch of other people that know a bunch of other people right now. So everyone in this room can contact someone who knows someone who knows, Elon Musk or Biden or whoever, anyone else on Earth, or Greta Thunberg, for that matter. So we're all connected, which means that sooner or later we'll all realize that there's borders and like different rules for different people. It's just bullshit. There is only one human right, and it's the right to be left alone. And all of this political bullshit is bullshit. We have a system where we have rules without rulers now. So we don't need any of the other crap. We can sort this out without violence and coercion. And I think it's just a matter of time before people figure it out, because I have hope for humanity. And I don't think the bad guys will win.